Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today is the start of Steelers OTAs, and the favorite to be the starting quarterback for 2025 is not on the roster and is not present. Today we'll talk about the latest surrounding Aaron Rodgers and why he has not signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers as of yet. Then we'll talk about some other QB targets that the Steelers could potentially go target here. First up, a new report saying that the Steelers could be targeting Kirk Cousins as their plan B option if Rodgers does not sign with the team. And then another article that breaks down Will Levis as a potential trade possibility for the Steelers. We'll be breaking down all three of these quarterbacks on today's edition of Steelers Talk. And later today, Coop and I will be going live on this channel at 5 p.m. Eastern Time to break down the latest surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. If we get any updates from OTAs, we'll let you guys know the latest from Pittsburgh, as well as all the latest news and rumors that fans are talking about. So for extensive live coverage for your Pittsburgh Steelers every single week, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now. So unfortunately, guys, the wait does continue. It's yet another week where we are waiting on four-time NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers for the 2025 season. And of course, today is the first day of Steelers OTAs, and Rodgers is not on the roster. Now, what this means and why Steelers fans should kind of be a little bit concerned here is that I do think Rodgers probably won't be showing up to the voluntary portions of Phase 3 of the offseason program, otherwise known as OTAs. Steelers OTAs finish up on June 5th. They have a little bit of a break before mandatory minicamp begins on June 10th. So that means that the pre-minicamp window for Rodgers to kind of sign and where it kind of makes sense for him to sign with the football team is June 6th through the 9th. Because if he's not showing up for the beginning of OTAs, guys, I'm just not sure if he's going to sign at any point during voluntary OTA. So hopefully Rodgers is there for minicamp. That's kind of what I'm hoping for at this point. And the reasons why I'm hoping he's there for minicamp is kind of laid out very nicely by Derek Bell from Steelers Now, who I thought had a really good breakdown of why it's important for Rodgers to be here during this portion of the offseason. Bell says, like most legendary signal callers, Rodgers has a very particular way that he likes to operate behind center. As he's aged, he prefers to get the ball out as quickly as possible, 2.65 seconds time to throw in 2024, something that will be a drastic change from the quarterbacks that were on the Steelers roster a year ago. He likes to play in rhythm, and he's also very big on details, from pre-snap hand signals to specific landmarks in the passing game. The marriage between Rodgers' unique style of ball and Arthur Smith's offense won't be a seamless integration and will take time to mesh together. The 41-year-old's best chance to go out on top is if the offense hits the ground running from the jump, and it would behoove them to have as much time as possible to work through the kinks. Now, unfortunately, I could see Rodgers signing right after minicamp. If he doesn't want to be there for the voluntary portions of OTAs, it's very possible that one of the reasons why he's not signing at this point in the offseason is because he doesn't want to sign, not show up for mandatory minicamp, and then get fined as a result, like he did last year when he was with the New York Jets when he took a trip to Egypt and got fined by the New York Jets for not showing up to mandatory minicamp. So he might be just looking to avoid that circus altogether. And as we know with Rodgers, he doesn't really feel like this is a necessary portion of the offseason program. He has actually, advocated for the season to start in the offseason program to start at training camp before. He actually advocated for that in the last collective bargaining negotiations between the Players Association and the league. But mandatory minicamp finishes on June 12th, so I could certainly see Rodgers signing on the dotted line shortly after that so that he doesn't have to take a fine for not showing up for any of the Steelers' practices during Phase 3 of the offseason program. Now, when it comes to when you should be getting nervous as a Steelers fan, in my opinion, it's probably a week after mandatory minicamp. And the reason for that, guys, is because after minicamp is over, the Steelers don't have anything going on until the start of training camp in late July. So there's literally no reason for Rodgers not to sign on the dotted line very shortly after mandatory minicamp at the very latest, because there's really no other reason not to sign other than, maybe he's got some more personal issues he has to deal with. But if we get into like July or late June and he still hasn't signed on the dotted line, guys, I think it's definitely fair to question whether he will ever sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason and whether or not the Steelers should pivot to a different quarterback option. But when it comes to Rodgers, there were some more rumors floating around this weekend surrounding the Minnesota Vikings, and some are starting to bring up that rumor again that Rodgers could be waiting for Minnesota to give him a call NFL and offer him their starting quarterback position over J.J. McCarthy. This was a report from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN saying there's some teams I've talked to that are still kind of wondering, is he just waiting out the Vikings? Because the Vikings would be an ideal scenario, one of the best play callers in the league in Kevin O'Connell, plus 9 dome games. Now, and not even Jeremy Fowler is buying this report, guys, or this kind of rumor from people around the league. I think people are more just, they don't really know what's going on, and they're kind of just throwing stuff out there if they're not connected to Rodgers or the Steelers. And that's what Fowler kind of thinks here. This is what he had to say on that, checking with the Vikings. I still don't expect the Vikings to sign Aaron Rodgers. They're moving forward with J.J. McCarthy. So Rodgers really has no other options other than Pittsburgh or retire. And then when it comes to kind of the signs of interest that Rodgers has shown to the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's only had great things to say about Pittsburgh. Remember, he said on the McAfee show that Mike Tomlin exceeded his expectations. He's friends with Arthur Smith. He has a relationship with quarterbacks coach Tom Arth. Also, he's only taken one visit this offseason, and that was to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's only thrown with one NFL wide receiver this offseason, a Steelers wide receiver, DK Metcalf. He has hinted publicly, we covered that last week, where he said at a Q&A that the team that he's planning on signing with has a road game in Chicago. The Steelers have a road game in Chicago this year. And then obviously Pittsburgh feels like they're comfortable waiting as long as it takes for Rodgers because apparently, given their interactions with him, they feel very confident that he is going to sign with the team. So yes, all signs still point to Aaron Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And my guess here, guys, is Rodgers is probably going to announce on the Pat McAfee show sometime next week, whether that's Thursday, whether that's Friday. I think he'll announce it then he'll take his trip to Pittsburgh, sign his contract, and then he'll be ready to go June 10th for the start of mandatory minicamp for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But like I said, it's certainly on the table that he doesn't show up to minicamp at all and signs shortly after June 12th. So with minicamp approaching here, will Rodgers sign before, after, or never with the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to mandatory minicamp? Type B if you think it's before minicamp, A if you think it's after at the end of minicamp, or type N if you think that Rodgers will never sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to let you guys know about our sponsor today at Fanatics. And while I'm talking about Fanatics today, let me know what you guys think Aaron Rodgers is going to do down there in the comments section. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. And, Aaron Rodgers is still a question mark here in Steelers Nation, but the one player that's a new addition that you can bank on having a jersey for this year with the Pittsburgh Steelers is DK Metcalf. He signed that massive new extension, so this is a jersey that you guys can have for a very long time and still be able to wear. You can go to chatsports.com/DK. That is our special link. If you click that link in the comments and description of today's show and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us here at Steelers Talk part of the proceeds. So if you are planning on getting a DK Metcalf number 4 Steelers jersey anyway, and you want to help out the channel in the process, you can go to chatsports.com/DK and make a purchase. Okay, so now let's move on to some potential plan B options for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they strike out on Aaron Rodgers. And Jeremy Fowler from ESPN says that Kirk Cousins is at least on the radar of the Pittsburgh Steelers as a plan B option this year. Fowler said, I had some conversations with people this week that led me to believe that Cousins is, at the very least, on the Steelers' radar if something were to fall through on Rodgers. Now, here's the thing, guys. When it comes to Kirk Cousins, the big question is not whether he's better than Mason Rudolph or is he better than some of the other options out there and on the trade market and free agency market. The big question is the money situation, because he still has quite a bit of guarantees left on his deal, and he still has 3 years left on his current contract. So the money situation can get a bit complicated, but Fowler said this when it comes to the money. Now here's how the Steelers and Falcons could make that happen. Cousins has $37.5 million in guarantees between this year and next year. Somebody's on the hook for that, whether it's Atlanta or someone else. Atlanta would need a team to offset some of that money, whether it's $4 million or $20 million, whatever it is. But the feeling around the league is that Atlanta has not been willing to budge on this. They haven't shown a lot of interest in trading Cousins. It would take a hefty price tag for another team to wiggle that out. So essentially how it'll work here, guys, is that the more money the Steelers would be willing to take on in terms of the guarantees on Kirk Cousins' contract and take that off of the books of the Atlanta Falcons, the lower the price tag is going to be. But if the Steelers are going to get Kirk Cousins for cheap, they're going to have to pay up a little bit more when it comes to the trade compensation and the draft pick that they give up to the Atlanta Falcons. And listen, guys, it's pretty apparent to me that Atlanta's just not going to trade him for nothing. It's not like they're going to take on his entire slate of guaranteed money and only trade him for like a 6th-round pick. The Steelers are either going to have to take on a pretty significant portion of the guarantees on his contract, or they're going to have to give up a pretty decent draft pick to get Kirk Cousins as their next starting quarterback. So the only thing that I'll tell Omar here, guys, is that he just can't overpay. All right? Don't overpay. Don't take on too much money. Don't trade like a 2nd or 3rd-round draft pick for Kirk Cousins, who is on the downswing of his career. For me, you have to get Kirk Cousins at the right price tag. And for me, I would be willing to take on a decent chunk of the guaranteed money if I can get him for the right price. And for me, that would be something like a conditional 6th-round draft pick that could turn into a 4th or a 5th-round draft pick if he plays 50% or more of the Steelers' offensive snaps this year. Very similar structure to the Justin Fields trade. I think it's something that could be worked out between the Steelers and Falcons if Pittsburgh's willing to take on some money here. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade to make Kirk Cousins the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me an A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And then another option on the trade market, if Kirk Cousins, say, is too expensive and Atlanta's not willing to come to the table, according to Bleacher Report's Mo Moton, is Tennessee Titans quarterback Will Levis, the former 2nd-round pick. Mo Moton said this when it comes to connecting Levis to the Steelers. Regardless of Aaron Rodgers' decision to play for the Steelers or retire, Pittsburgh should offer a 4th-round pick for Levis. Rodgers will turn 42 in December, and at this point, he's a year-to-year player. Levis has 2 years left on his rookie deal. If the Steelers finish the 2025 season with a mediocre record and Rodgers only sticks around for 1 year, they would at least have an experienced young starter in Levis, who they can develop for the long term. In 7 seasons, Mason Rudolph has been a game manager at 25. Levis, with a big arm and mobility, has far more upside. Now, when it comes to making the case for the Steelers to potentially trade for Will Levis, it's an upside play. He's only 25 years old. He's got incredible arm talent. And, if he's more affordable than Kirk Cousins and say Atlanta's saying you have to give us a 2nd-round pick or we're not giving you Cousins, then, at that point, with no Rodgers and no Cousins, you can make an argument that the Steelers should go with the upside play. And there's no other option out there, including Will Howard, in my opinion, that has more upside than Will Levis. He has incredible arm talent. He brings great size to the table at 6'4", 230 pounds, plus athleticism at that size. Steelers fans would absolutely love his competitive toughness. He's an absolute dog out there, and he might have the quickest release in the National Football League today, maybe outside of Aaron Rodgers, but like Rodgers, he's a very rotational passer, extremely quick release. He's got some really great physical attributes, but the accuracy has been a big concern of his, even going back to his college days at Kentucky. He's going to have to figure that out. Also, the decision-making, it's very similar to like Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, where he's just throwing the ball up there, and there's a lot of turnover where he plays on his film, and then his pocket presence isn't fantastic either, so he doesn't manage the pocket all that well. And as a result, you guys can see here, the advanced numbers aren't fantastic. Now, the big-time throw percentage was top 10 last year, so he's certainly capable of making some big-time throws, and he does get the ball out pretty quickly, so he does mentally process defenses pretty darn well. He was 4th in the league last year in time to throw, and then he also, he's not afraid to throw the ball down the field as well, where he's 12th in average depth of target. But the results just haven't really been there, guys. 42nd, that was dead last in EPA per play among eligible quarterbacks last year. The yards per attempt was below 7. That's absolutely abysmal. He was also dead last in pressure to sack percentage, so that kind of shows the pocket presence, and he takes a lot of sacks when he's under pressure. So I think a 4th rounder for Will Levis, given what we've seen on his film, would be nuts. All right, I think that he would be a day 3 draft pick, maybe a 5th-round pick at the very most, and he would be a straight up upside play because he does have some tools where he's great on throwing on the run, and in an Arthur Smith offense where, you could use a lot of play action and get him on the run and get him on the move, he could be a pretty decent quarterback in this system. But obviously because of the decision-making issues, because of the accuracy concerns, because of the lack of pocket presence and, only 5 wins as an NFL starter in 2 years, it's hard to really feel comfortable investing anything more than a mid to late day 3 pick, at least if I were the one making an offer for him. But I will say I would rather go with Levis than Mason Rudolph. I think if you're going into the season with a starting quarterback, your quarterback can be one of 2 things. Either A, guy that you think you can win with now, or B, somebody that you think can be your long-term answer. I don't think Rudolph is either one of those things. I don't think he's a short-term or long-term solution. I think he's just a true backup. But Will Levis could be a potential long-term option, and he actually, I think, played better than Mason Rudolph in the same offense last year. Rudolph got benched for Levis twice last year, and Levis had better yards per attempt efficiency, more big-time throws, around the same interception percentage, and then he had a slightly higher passer rating. So these guys played pretty similarly last year, but obviously Levis has the higher upside given his mobility, given his athleticism, given his dynamic arm talent. He's got an absolute rifle, a quick release, a lot of things that Mason Rudolph just doesn't have from a physical perspective. And then also Levis is 25 years old, so he could theoretically be your long-term option. But listen, man, these two were responsible for giving the Titans the first overall pick last year. Like, is it really a good idea for the Steelers to bring these two back together on the same team? I don't know, man. But if you don't get Aaron Rodgers, like I've been saying for weeks, guys, your options are pretty slim, and they're honestly no good options outside of Aaron Rodgers at this point, in my opinion. So let me know down there in the comment section, would you trade a 6th-round pick for Will Levis? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. If you don't get Rodgers, I would certainly consider it, especially if I can't get Kirk Cousins for the right price tag. But let me know your guys' thoughts on Will Levis down there in the comment section. Again, guys, Coop and I will be going live later this afternoon for Steelers Talk Live, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll talk about the first day of OTAs for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the latest rumors. If we get any more updates on Rodgers or anybody else, we'll let you guys know the latest surrounding the black and gold. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's video, and I'll see you guys later today.